All right, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints. Only a few short days away from opening game, obviously Thursday night between the Chiefs and the Lions, and then of course the Sunday game action. Football is only a few short days away. The New Orleans Saints playing the Tennessee Titans, but before the game, the New Orleans Saints have recently come out with kind of a very under the radar, but I think it's a really sneaky good move, a way to kind of finagle themselves around some new NFL rules that I think could give them a massive advantage this season.
Yeah, Nick, when you say under the radar, I think that is an under the radar statement because I don't think anyone even fully understood what the Saints could do until today. So this is a really interesting story. Quick pickup on your part, and I think everyone's going to love to hear this one. But Saints fans, come on. We're right there. You're coming into this week versus the Titans. It's going to be a big time game. So let's get it. Let's get our first score prediction of the season under our belts. Going into the Titans, you got that 3 point, favorites. You're at home, so you're even game, even matchup. What do you think the score of this game is going to be? Let us know in the comment section below. First game of the season, new team, new Saints. What do you think Derek Carr comes out and does versus the Titans? Let us know in the comment section below. But Nick, let's get on into it. What's going on with the Saints?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, but let's get into the first report that kind of kicks off this story. This is actually a tweet from Nick Underhill, who's a good reporter for the Saints Miles, if you want to throw it up. From the tweet itself, again, this was earlier today. It says Taysom Hill listed as a quarterback on the week one roster, was a tight end all camp. Now, first and foremost, when you see that, you're like, what's really the big deal? Here's the interesting dynamic. Also today, the NFL released its guidelines and standards for the new emergency QB3 rule that's gone into effect this season. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, here's how it kind of works. It's kind of a complicated deal, so you have to bear with me. The NFL has allowed teams to take up an additional game day roster spot. You're constrained by the number of players you can dress on game day. You have 53 on the final roster. You have less than that on game day. You're constrained by that. A lot of teams that have third quarterbacks usually don't dress them. The NFL says, okay, we'll let you work around that. We'll let you dress him, but he can only enter the game on very limited circumstances. And the basic gist of it is this: that emergency third quarterback can only enter the game if and only if the other two quarterbacks are out. And that could be due to injuries. It could be during concussion evaluation. It could be during disqualification. It could be during all kinds of things. The other two quarterbacks can't play for whatever reason. You get to throw a third quarterback in the game. Here's where it gets interesting, and here's where I think the Saints made a really smart move here. Obviously, Derek Carr is the QB1, but the New Orleans Saints, like every other team, they really always want their entire 53-man to dress, but they can't because of the NFL rules. And what you really want is you have to make those tough decisions on game day. Are you going to dress an extra lineman for depth, an extra receiver for depth, an extra corner for depth? And we know sometimes, and Saints fans, you guys are very well aware of this fact, injuries over the course of a game can really screw up your game plan. If you go into a game plan, let's say with you're dressing two outside wide receivers, let's say three outside wide receivers, and two go down, you're now stuck with only one outside wide receiver. Your game plan is screwed up, right? You got to completely change what you're doing. Tough situation to be in. However, if you could dress another outside wide receiver, there you go. You have two guys go down. You can keep doing what you're doing, even with those injuries. But teams have to make decisions on who they're going to dress because they're limited. But the Saints here are smartly giving themselves an additional game day roster spot. By making Taysom Hill listed as a quarterback, he will be, in my opinion, I think this is what the Saints strategy is going to be, listed as the QB2 on game day. Derek Carr QB1, Taysom Hill QB2. As QB2, Taysom Hill can do whatever he wants over the course of the game. If Derek Carr goes down for a short period of time, let's say, he sprains his ankle, needs to get taped, he's going to be back in a series or two, Taysom Hill can run the offense for a series or two, and Derek Carr can come back. If Derek Carr gets injured severely, and here's where I think it gets interesting, Taysom Hill will mysteriously come down with cramps or something like that, and then you can play Winston or Hainer, whoever is your true QB2, your real QB2 in those situations. Long story short, I know we threw a lot of stuff at you and Mize. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the other side of this. The Saints have come up with a creative way to keep Taysom Hill on the roster in his normal capacity, make sure they have a backup to Derek Carr if he gets hurt really badly and can't return to the game, and also pick up an extra roster spot because they get to activate their emergency quarterback instead of having a guy like Jameis Winston, for example, take up one of those limited roster spots. I think this is a really smart move by the Saints, how they structured this. I think the timing of this is really indicative of what the Saints have been trying to figure out the best way to do this. But Miles, let me throw it over to you now. What are your thoughts on everything with this move with Taysom Hill in New Orleans right now?
Yeah, Nick, it's all very complicated as far as there's they released a Q&A, and I think it's like 13 questions long just talking about what could or couldn't happen. So there's a lot to do here. But I think the long and short of it, you explained it pretty clearly, is that Taysom Hill is going to be listed as QB2 because the QB3 cannot be a player on the field unless other two quarterbacks are out for whatever injury reason it could be. So they want Taysom Hill on the field in his tight end, whatever receiving role they're trying to develop him. And that is how he's going to do it. He'll be a QB tight end or whatever they want to designate him as. He'll be the quarterback too. He'll go out, play his normal positions. If Carr goes down, bada bing, bada boom, Taysom Hill comes in. And I really like the other idea though. Just the fact that you're having him in there, but you get to use your other roster spot on another player to give yourself slight advantage. Because if it does come down to it and Carr cannot come back into the game for an extended period of time, who knows what happens to, play to play. People get banged up all the time. And that's where the rule says if, they're getting evaluated, if someone's out and then the QB2 is being evaluated for injury, whatever that injury may be, QB3 can come in. So then Jameis Winston or Jake Haener, whoever the case is going to be, comes in and is your de facto quarterback 2 at that point. Now, the only question, and you may have seen this, Nick, but this is something that probably people want to be answered eventually, is if QB3 comes in, is Taysom Hill allowed to come back into the game in a non-quarterback position? I didn't come across that.
The rules are vague and it's very interesting. I don't think so. So I think it would have to be a situation where Derek Carr would be really like Derek Carr is out for the rest of the game. And it's like, okay, we'd be better off with Taysom Hill not playing and Jameis Winston, for example, playing just in the structure of their game plan. So it would be a choice in how the game was going, right, and things like that, and what, the situation, who they were playing. It would be something you can make at the moment in time. But here's the beautiful part of it. If you don't set it up this way, you don't get to make that choice. The choice is already made for you before the game starts. Here, if the situation comes up and God forbid no one wants injuries to occur, they at least have a choice. They can either go, all right, do we want Taysom Hill to play quarterback the rest of the game? Or do we want Taysom Hill to not play at all the rest of the game and Winston gets to play? And if you didn't have this rule, if you didn't set it up, Taysom Hill as QB2, designate him as a quarterback, you wouldn't have that choice. Here, you get a choice.